Welcome to the SBR NHL Ice Guys. It's Thursday, October 4th. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, joined by Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis. Jimmy Murphy expected to be with us, hopefully able to join us later on in the show. Maybe he's having technical issues, but we're expecting him at some point. We're ready to break down this Thursday card. We're going to get right to it because it's always a lot of games on the 3 days that we're on these shows most of the time, and it's no different here today. We got a big card, 10 games in all. Washington-Pittsburgh is going to start us off 51-52. We have no line side or total in this game yet because of the fact, obviously, we saw the Capitals in action last night. It's going to be that same kind of pattern this year where when you have a team that played last night, you may have to wait a little longer for the line to be posted for the game the very next day. And that's certainly been the case here with Washington-Pittsburgh. What can you say about the Capitals? Dominant. 7-0 shutout over Boston last night. All the big guns stepped up, played well. Kuznetsov, Oshie, Ovechkin, all hitting the score sheet for the Capitals. Bruins just flat, not ready to play early in that game, just have it taken to them. And then when you have two goals in the blink of an eye go in against you, including a misplay by Tuukka Rask, a really rough night in net for the Boston Bruins, that tells you all you need to know. And that was sort of like the snowball that just kept building throughout the course of that game. The Washington Capitals really won all the battles to the loose pucks all night long. Boston rarely won any. Well, Boston won maybe a couple of the fights. That's about it last night in that hockey game. Other than that, they were dominated on the score sheet. So much for missing Tom Wilson, who, of course, suspended 20 games, dealt a huge suspension by the National Hockey League for his hit on Oscar Sundqvist of the Blues. Obviously a situation where he's been a repeat offender. He's done this crap enough now in his career that had to bring down the hammer hard and get this guy for a big-time suspension and really show him that, hey, this shit's not going to be tolerated anymore. These blindside hits, coming across the ice, catching a guy with his head down and elbowing up just a little bit. This hit wasn't quite as bad, though, as some of the hits he's had or some of the other hits I've seen, but the fact he was still, it's like charging here. You're just coming from the other end of the ice, hitting the guy, and I think and the NHL has seen him do that before many times, and I think that got to the point where they had to come down with a big-time suspension, even though I've seen worse hits than that. So a big-time loss for the Washington Capitals, because we know with Wilson, it's a guy that not only has become an enforcer, but a good player, a guy that can chip in offensively. He can play hockey. He's not just some guy that's out there to be physical and hit people. He has some game to him, so it's going to be a loss, but Washington certainly coped without him very well last night. Back-to-back situation for them. Here, Capitals weren't terrible last year on the second night of back-to-backs, but it is a new season. Todd Reardon, new head coach, coming over, replacing Barry Trotz. So you got to, even though last season stats do matter, you don't want to overrate them. It is still a new team and a new season. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, here's Pittsburgh for a change, guys. They're not really getting that attention. They're sort of falling below some of the other teams. Toronto's getting a lot of hype and attention and discussion. Washington, obviously, defending champs. Tampa Bay getting a lot of discussion. Pittsburgh, not quite as much. Maybe this is a chance for Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Phil Kessel and company to sort of slide below the radar and maybe not only have a good season, but maybe take some of the pressure off them. Of course, for last year, they were knocked out by the eventual Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals, who finally got a playoff series win over the Penguins. So it's a playoff revenge game, if you will. Here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think the spot and the situation is good for Pittsburgh. I'll probably lean in that direction, but again, until I see a price, I can't really say if I'm going to be affirmative with actually pulling the trigger just yet, but lean here is a little bit to Pittsburgh. Obviously, you didn't see a Stanley Cup hangover last night. When you have that big moment, raising the banner, you have an emphatic 7-0 win, and then you got to come back on the road the next night. It's not exactly a bet-on spot, if you ask me. So I'm definitely going to lean toward Pittsburgh here in this game. But again, until I see a price, just a lean for me now on that game. We've got the Islanders in Carolina, 53-54 on the rotation here. Carolina minus 160. The total 6 shaded to the over. This is the first game on the card here for Alex B. Smith. So let's get his thoughts on this game. Islanders, Carolina. Briefly for me, I like this Carolina team, except everything about the team except their goaltending. That's the one concern I've got. Darling injured. Is Peter Mrazek a guy that's going to be able to hold the fort? They get Curtis McElhinney off waivers from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So goaltending is going to be the potential downfall again of this Carolina team. But I like the moves they made. Dougie Hamilton's here now, big addition in that trade with the Calgary Flames. I think Sebastian Aho, Zykov, Some of these youngsters for Carolina that a lot of people don't know a ton about, they're going to be good offensive players, and they're going to not get the hype that some players get because they play for the Carolina Hurricanes, but watch out for them. Got some offensive talent. Islanders bring in Barry Trotz. We know why they do that. They have to clean up this defensive end of the ice for them because it was a train wreck for them last year. New York Islanders over was an en vogue thing to do last year. All the cool kids were doing it because it was working. I mean, Islander over the total last year, it was like clockwork. This team was an over machine because their defense was bad, goaltending was subpar, but they could score goals. And now Barry Trotz, who's been a guy that's been able to make every team he's coached in before, Nashville, Washington, a better defensive team, is going to be tasked to try to do that with this Islanders team. They got the coach to play better defense. Can he get this personnel to buy in and play better defense? That's the question that I still have with the Islanders to start this season. Let's get Alex's take. Islanders and Hurricanes. Alex, what do you like?
Yeah, that's the one big thing I've been looking at with this matchup with the Islanders. Obviously, Barry Trotz making his debut there. Like I said, the defense was atrocious last year, so that's something that I would assume that if they're going to have one real, shining aspect that they're going to be working on in this game and early in the year, it's going to be tightening things down on defense. So obviously, when you think about that, you want to look at maybe looking at the under and look at Thomas Greiss, who has some decent numbers against Carolina in his career. 5-3-1 with a 2.93 goals against and a 9.10 save percentage. So I'm looking at that, and then you look at the flip side with Carolina. I like some of these moves that they've made, like you mentioned, but they're still a young team in progress. They don't really have anything that's super solid saying, okay, this is a team that can make the playoffs this year, or this is a team that's, just going to be completely out of it and rebuild and have to wait another year. They're going to be competitive at times, but the goaltending is very suspect. Peter Mrazek, not a guy that I want to really, rely on. And looking at this price here, you're getting a plus $1.40, $1.45 with the Islanders. That's the side I'm going to be looking at here. I think they've won 7 of the last 10 games on the road against Carolina as well. So they've done well in this setting. It won't be like the craziest of crowds, even though it's opening night in Carolina. So the Islanders at a plus price is something I'm looking at here.
All right, Islanders as a plus price, and not a bad thought this early in the season, trying to pluck some of these big underdog prices. You're going to see situations where you're going to see some hype favorites, big time expectations with certain teams, and in that first game they don't meet them. Hello, San Jose Sharks last night. So yeah, just an indication of that. Although they did get outplayed, Anaheim, in that game, but hey, they had the better goalie, and in a lot of games that's going to be the difference in the end. Last night in that hockey game. So Alex making a case for the New York Islanders as a big underdog in that game against the Carolina Hurricanes. So very interesting to see how that one plays out. Next up, we have Boston taking on Buffalo, 55-56. Boston minus 130, minus 135. Total 5.5, shaded to the over at minus 125. And you basically know that it was a very, very bad night for your hockey team when Bruce Cassidy, head coach of the Boston Bruins, is calling out his team after game 1 of 82. And that's exactly what he did last night after that 7-0 loss to the Washington Capitals, saying, we didn't have that compete level, we didn't have the spark, we just didn't have that effort that was required to put forth a competitive effort. And when you're talking about lack of competitiveness, that's a stinging remark from the head coach. But yeah, Boston was completely outplayed. A horrible showing. There's no other way around it, and certainly concerns for them maybe a little bit moving forward. But you would expect a Boston team that's still, got a very good amount of talent. I do get concerned with that bottom 6 forwards for this team. That is going to be the concern for them. I love the top 6 forwards and the top 2 lines, but that depth of scoring is going to be a concern for them. Defensively, not a good night for them at all last night. You got to wonder with a guy like Big Z, another year older for him, Chara on the back end, how's he going to play? And Tuukka Rask's got to, play better. He's been good at times. He's been bad at times the last couple of years, and it was bad Tuukka Rask last night. We'll see if he's going to be able to bounce back here. Very interested to see what they do, actually, in terms of their goaltending here in this game. The Boston Bruins, considering what happened last night, it looks like it is Yaroslav Halak confirmed, backup goalie for the Boston Bruins in net tonight. So already Bruce Cassidy not screwing around. Tuukka was awful last night. We're going to go with Yaroslav Halak now tonight and see if we can get a win with him between the pipes and maybe get the players in front of Yaro Halak to play better, because it was a collective effort. I mean, it was bad defensive coverage last night in their own zone by the Bruins in front of Rask, but certainly it was not Rask's finest moment, that's for sure. The Buffalo Sabres, here's a team that I think is going to be better, but I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs better. They've still got a long way to go. I think they're going to be more competitive. That they've got some positive signs in the offseason. Obviously, the big addition is going to be their first overall pick, Rasmus Dahlin, who looks like he's going to be one hell of a player on the back end for this team. He's really good in all situations, and that's something definitely the Sabres are going to be counting on with him, is his ability to play, offensively be good, defensively be good, play in all situations, power play, PK, and definitely a guy that the Sabres have very high hopes for. The rest of this blue line, though, is hit or miss, and believe it or not, there's a bunch of injuries already for Buffalo on that back end. Marco Scandella, Rasmus Ristolainen, Zach Bogosian. Can this guy ever stay healthy? I mean, holy mackerel. I mean, it's just one injury after another for him. That's been an issue, but I like the forward group. I mean, it's a great forward group in my mind. It's upgraded from last year. You look at their top six. I mean, you got Jeff Skinner in the trade with the Carolina Hurricanes, Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Connor Sheary, a very, very good addition. He's had playoff experience with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I like him being on this hockey team. Patrick Berglund and Tage Thompson, two guys they get in that big deal with the St. Louis Blues that sent Ryan O'Reilly in the other direction. So there's some hope for Buffalo up front, but there's some injuries on D. Can the goaltending be better this season with Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark as your two goalies? Hutton was good last year, believe it or not. That's actually the St. Louis Blues are actually going to miss Carter Hutton because he's been good in the past. He's had some decent moments. We'll see now how he does here with the Buffalo Sabres moving forward. I think there's going to be opportunities, guys, to make money with the Sabres. I just don't know if it's tonight. I don't really want to stand in front of Boston here after just such a debacle last night. You would think they're going to have fire in their belly tonight to bounce back. So it's a pass for me in this game, but just keep an eye on the Buffalo Sabres. Keep an eye on how this team competes starting tonight. I mean, this is going to be a good litmus test. They should have an angry, ornery, motivated, and still, in my opinion, a good Boston team coming into play this game. We'll see if Buffalo can stand up to it. A very good game to watch, see, and gauge where this Buffalo Sabres team is at right now, and also potentially moving forward in the weeks to come. All right, next up, we've got Columbus, Detroit, 57. Yeah.
I know I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say that it reminded me when you talked about how Halak's getting the start tonight, and whether or not he actually was already confirmed and it was already decided for him to start tonight before last night's performance or not. They got off to a really tough start. I mean, like you mentioned, that's just a tough way to start a game, tough way to start a season in general, guys. I mean, I wasn't watching that game. I was watching the Leafs and Habs game, but seeing the highlights, getting my alerts on my phone, seeing the way that game unfolded. I mean, just the second and third goal, Ian, in the first couple of minutes, guys, trickling pucks. I mean, they weren't really spectacular goals. And the fact is that's really tough is that Halak's going to go out there. And, Rask, you always feel bad for the number one guy when this happens. The number one guy goes out. The team doesn't play well in front of him. He has a very bad start with a couple awkward goals. Now, if Halak goes out there and the Boston Bruins take care of the Buffalo Sabres with ease tonight and they have a dominant performance, it makes Halak look good. But when it comes down to it, Boston did not play a good game in front of their goaltender either. So it's always good to keep that in mind, guys, when you're doing your handicapping everybody out there, because let's face it, Rask, had a kind of a crappy start, but don't just blame that whole game on him just because he got pulled from the game. It was a very, very touchy first couple minutes for him, but other than that was a poor defensive performance from Boston. The blame definitely isn't all on Rask, for sure, in my opinion.
No, it was. There was a collective defensive effort last night in a bad way for the Boston Bruins, and we'll see if they can rectify that tonight. Columbus, Detroit. We got Columbus laying a $1.40-45 on the road in Detroit. Little Caesars, the pizza box, as I like to say. The total 5.5, shaded to the under, -115. Hey, that's a good name, Little Caesars Arena. Why not? Yeah, exactly. I do have a play on this game. We're going to go over 5.5, +105 in this game. If you remember Columbus last year, they just were a torrid over the total team. late in the regular season and into the playoffs. And they were an over machine. They just all of a sudden had a tremendous streak to end the season in terms of cashing over bets. And I expect that to really continue early on this season. And, they've got a good offense. Seth Jones being out is going to hurt them a little bit defensively on the back end. I like the Blue Jackets up front. I like Panarin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Cam Atkinson top line. That's a good top line. They're going to be able to score goals. Foligno, Alex Wenberg, Oliver Bjorkstrand on that second line. Jenner, Dubinsky, Josh Anderson, we know, can put the puck in the net, put the biscuit in the basket. You look at the fourth line for this team. I know Anthony Duclair has been a picture of disappointment for the last couple of years. He is motivated to bounce back strong. He's not been happy with the way he's played the last couple of seasons, bounced around now to a couple of teams. Arizona was not a good situation for him. I expect him to actually be better. He can't be any worse. I think he's motivated. He's on a better team now. You'll see him. Sonny Milano on that fourth line, too, is a guy that scored some goals before, too. So this is a Columbus team that I think on all four lines has one or two players that can put the puck in the net for you. Defensively, you still have some question marks with them. Ryan Murray is going to play, I believe, in this game, but he was banged up in training camp and in the preseason. Gabe Carlson, Dean Kukan on the back end, Werenski and Savard. I mean, it's not a great back end. And again, they're without Seth Jones to begin the season. And then you got your goaltending situation. You got Bobrovsky, who has been great the last couple of years, but didn't have a great preseason. Such a concern for John Tortorella that he's actually going to start Joonas Korpisalo in net in this game tonight for the Jackets. And I'm not a Joonas Korpisalo guy. He's very erratic. He's very up and down. I think it's a concern for me that John Tortorella is actually going with Korpisalo in game number one. I know Bobrovsky's had a tough preseason, but come on. I mean, a little surprising. I think they do play tomorrow night. Maybe that has something to do with that. But Korpisalo starting game one is a little surprising to me. And on the other side of it, you've got the Detroit Red Wings, who defensively, if you look at them, they're a mash unit already in terms of injuries. I mean, they've got some key cogs that are either questionable at best or doubtful to play in this first game tonight. Nick Cronwall's been injured. Jonathan Ericsson may or may not play. Nick Cronwall may or may not play tonight. And I think doubtful is the last I heard for both of them. Mike Green definitely will not play for the Detroit Red Wings on that blue line. So you're looking at a blue line tonight. Trevor Daley was also injured in the preseason. He will play, but you're looking at Danny DeKeyser, Nick Jensen, Trevor Daley, Dennis Cholowski, a guy that actually played very well in the preseason for the Red Wings on defense, and a third pair that's very, very young, very, very inexperienced with Shulak, who got a lot of time in the preseason. Libor Shulak for the Red Wings, and Philippe Hronek for the Red Wings on that third pair. That's a very, very young, inexperienced Detroit blue line tonight and starting the season with all those injuries. So, and then their goaltending. I mean, Jimmy Howard could look good for one moment, could look bad the next moment, and Jonathan Bernier are not goalies that I have overly high hopes for by any stretch of the imagination. Jimmy Howard now has been in the league way long enough to know what he is. He is what he is at this point. It's an average goalie, not number one material, but unfortunately on this team, he's forced to be a number one because they really have no other viable option. So I like over 5.5 here. I think Detroit, and I like Detroit offensively a little bit. Nyquist, Larkin, Mantha, Bertuzzi, Nielsen, Rasmussen, Abdelkader, Athanasiou was very good. Vanek, of course, now a Detroit Red Wing as well. So they're going to have some ability to put the puck in the net. And losing Henrik Zetterberg to retirement is a big detriment to this team, a bigger detriment to this team defensively than offensively, especially in the latter years where Zetterberg wasn't really putting up the offensive numbers that he did early in his career. So I think we're going to see some goals here. I like Columbus, Detroit over the 5.5 here at a good price too, plus 105, slight plus price here to go over the total. I was looking to back Columbus too, but I'm not doing it at minus 140 on the road. We've got Chicago and Ottawa. Should be interesting. Two teams that a lot of people not very high on, to say the least, coming into the season. Chicago minus 120, road favorites, total 6 shaded to the under. It's a pass for me. I mean, I don't want to lay anything with Chicago on the road, but Ottawa, we know what that is as paper thin a forward group as I've ever seen. It's as weak a blue line as I've ever seen. And you got Craig Anderson, who's going to be damn near 40 in pretty soon in net for this team. So tells you all you need to know about Ottawa. Two teams I'd rather bet against right now. than bet on. So it's a pass for me. But hey, it's a Chicago game, and you know what that means. Got to get Alex B. Smith and his thoughts on the Blackhawks on the show here as they open the season in Canada's nation's capital against the Ottawa Senators. Alex, Chicago and Ottawa here. What do you like?
Well, the only thing that's really sticking out with me and it's screaming at me is the over in this game. You got over 6. You can find it around the pick'em price. That's but even money pretty much everywhere. Chicago's already had the flu running through the locker room now. It's only day 2 of the regular season. You got Brent Seabrook, who's missing time and missed practice with this flu-like symptoms. Luke Johnson, one of the newer guys, newer forward, he's out, missed over the weekend with some flu-like issues. Alex DeBrincat, supposed to be one of the basically the 3rd, 4th best forward on this team, also missing some time as well. The biggest issue here is Seabrook, obviously, because you've got Connor Murphy and Gustav Forsling already on IR. We're talking about a very, very weak blue line for the Hawks, and now one of the top 2 defensemen in the team might not play in this game. He said everything's weak on Ottawa. I mean, the only thing that could be a shining glimmer is Craig Anderson, he's 37. I actually thought he was closer to 42 when you said that, but I just looked it up now. He's 37, playing against the team he grew up with, his original team, the Hawks. But everything here, I look at the first period over. I was looking at both team totals, price just right around minus $1.35, $1.40. I could see this being an absolute shootout, which means I wouldn't look at either side here. Like I said, I could just see it going back and forth. Whoever gets I would say whoever gets the last goal more likely to win it. Might want to look at the draw here too. We could see a 3-3 or 4-4 game, possibly pushing overtime. But the one thing for sure I'll be on is the over 6.
All right, over 6, Chicago and Ottawa here for Alex B. Smith. Makes some sense. I mean, you got 2 bad teams. You roll the puck out on the ice and you have some fun. That's always what I like to say when it comes to 2 bad teams, 2 shaky defenses, 2 shaky goaltenders as well. So over is Alex's play on Chicago, Ottawa. Andrew McGinnis also has a play and an opinion on this Chicago-Ottawa game. Andrew, what do you like here in this game?
Yeah, guys, I think we're going to see a lot of overs between both these 2 teams in the entire year. I mean, these are 2 teams that are going to make a lot of mistakes in the back end and the blue line, I think. And I think for that reason, guys, I'm coming into this game and I look at this price, and we were talking about before the show off air about looking over cards, how we analyze games, and it's tough to make a pick on certain games, but this one stuck out to me because everyone knows these 2 teams are on the decline. But let's look at the rosters. I mean, we still have a team that has Jonathan Toews, Patty Kane, and these defensemen like Seabrook, like Keith, that can still carry a team. And the fact is, Ottawa does not have that. And everyone's talking about laying these road faves. Well, you know what? We're only getting around minus 113, minus 110, actually, some spots. And to me, that's a great number. That's a great opportunity for us to get a team that has more experience, has more skill, and overall, they just the confidence level is a lot higher. These 2 teams played a few times in the preseason, and in the game where they actually did play their regular players, Jonathan Toews, Kane, Anisimov, those guys just lit the scoreboard up. I mean, they looked like they belonged to be there. There's too many guys in the Ottawa Senators, guys, that it's almost like they have something to prove. They have to prove their worth to their team, to their GM, to their city, and Chicago does not have to do that right now. And I think this team is in for a very, very tough year. I mean, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of the word rebuild. I hate with all of my heart teams that use that word. I think one of the main reasons my favorite team, Montreal, isn't doing that is because of price and other reasons. But you have to, as a GM and as a professional franchise, professional team, you have to find a way to work around that and slowly, not just call yourself a rebuild, but, you can have prospects and stuff like that, but you don't want to just completely just take out the trash and start from day one. I think that's almost what Ottawa's trying to do. They've got some, prospects coming up, some younger players, of course, Thomas Chabot. They've got Drake Batherson in their system now, who, of course, we saw him play great at the World Juniors last year. But when I look at this roster, guys, and I look at these, even the goaltending matchup, I mean, we've got Anderson, who in my eyes, guys, he looked frustrated last year. He looked like he was a pissed off goalie that goes out. I mean, how would you guys feel if you're a goalie for any team and you had to go out there and you knew there's going to be just 70% of the time it's going to be in your end? I mean, you have to go out there and have a lights out performance for your team to even friggin' survive in a game, because I wouldn't like that. And they definitely know that's what's going to happen. So for me, coming into this game, guys, I'm obviously, I'm taking Chicago Blackhawks on the money line. They're coming into Ottawa. I like teams that start their year off on the road. I'm a fan of road trips to start seasons off. It helps build chemistry. It helps teams kind of come together. And of course, I always say, I was writing an article yesterday, there's no pressure. Whether anyone wants to say it or not, guys, there is pressure. These guys are professional athletes. They get paid millions, but the fans put pressure on them. The coaches put pressure on them. The whole city does. And so when you're going into a new town, it's almost like, wow, I can take a little step back and take a deep breath. And all the pressure's on these guys. It's their opening night. So, looking at these two teams, the matchups, there's a couple guys that do stick out for Ottawa, like Duchesne, like Bobby Ryan, like Mark Stone, but not too much farther down than that, guys. And that's really the biggest issue for me. As far as the Blackhawks go, I'm comfortable with Cam Ward. I've actually been a Cam Ward fan. A lot of people are going to say that, maybe 6-7 years ago, you could rely on him for a wager and for a confident bet. But he's on a good team. He's on a team that can put up wins. And, I know Alex is a big fan of them as well. And I think that as the year progresses, this team will shock some people. They'll be able to stay in some games. Like Alex said, I do agree with his over bet. I would have loved to have been able to kind of buy the 5.5 somewhere. But overall, guys, this game Ottawa will just cough the puck up too many times. They'll make too many errors. They'll take too many dumb penalties. And for that reason, I'm on the Blackhawks money line.
All right, Chicago money line for Andrew McGinnis in that game, Chicago-Ottawa. Yeah, I mean, Cam Ward, we'll see. Maybe, again, it hasn't been pretty for him the last couple of years down there in Kakalaki. Maybe getting to Chicago is going to help him. Who knows? But I think Cam Ward's best days are still well behind him. We'll see, though, if he can thrive here with a change of scenery here now in Chicago with this Blackhawks team. But, yeah, that's a very interesting game there because you got two teams. Someone's got to win that game. Like, I'm not high on either team, but someone's got to win that game tonight. We'll see who ends up on top, Blackhawks and Sens. Nashville Rangers at MSG in the Big Apple. We've got Nashville minus 160 road favorites here. The total 6 shaded to the under. Of course, for the New York Rangers, there's a lot of changes from last year's team. No question about that. Of course, Alain Vigneault fired, new coach in there now. The forward group, they're going to try to play a little bit of a different style this year. This New York Rangers team defensively, still question marks. What's Henrik Lundqvist going to give you? And that's always now a concern year to year. It wasn't a very good year at all last year for Lundqvist. He had some decent moments, and there were actually some games things could have been a lot worse for the New York Rangers if not for Henrik Lundqvist. But you'd also have those games where he's given up 4 or 5 goals and not looking good and getting pulled from the game. So there's definitely some issues with the New York Rangers. Maybe in time they have a chance to surprise some people, but this is a very, very tough, tall order in your very first game hosting a Nashville Predators team that has every chance to win the Western Conference this season. They're absolutely phenomenal. I mean, forwards, they're phenomenal. Defense, they're phenomenal. Goaltending's the one little concern for them. I mean, Pekarine's not getting any younger for this Nashville team. Can he be stable in between the pipes? And can UC Saros do an adequate job spelling him off as the backup? That's the question. But you look at the forward group, it's fantastic. I mean, Smith, Turris, Fiala, Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson. It's a great group in that top 6. The defense is loaded with Yossi Ellis, Ekholm, Subban as your top 4. You got a Dan Hamhuis and a Yannick Weber who are pretty decent defensemen in their own right, and they're your 5-6 defensemen. That is how loaded Nashville is on the back end. It's an impressive allotment from this team. Yeah, again, I was looking at Nashville, but it's now priced well out of my range. I don't lay more than minus 150, minus 160 on the road. It's what I expected, to be honest. I knew you're not going to get many bargains this year with Nashville. They're a very well-known quality hockey team, elite team in the NHL. Hard to make money with teams like that, game in, game out in the NHL on a seasonal basis. Andrew McGinnis, I believe this is one of his games, Nashville, New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. Andrew, what's your take here on this one?
Ian, it kind of disappoints me, hearing you say it's out of your range. I understand that we often talk about what our ranges are and, the minus 150, minus 155 mark. But as the season progresses, Ian, for example, I saw some guys, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I saw some people last night literally on, the Leafs minus 2 something or the Sharks minus 170. that's getting a little carried away in my eyes. That's a little bit too much. If you're not taking the regulation line with the Leafs last night or the puck line, and you're just taking, I mean, they did win outright, I guess. Maybe put it on a parlay or keep the unit sizing down a lot. If you're gonna lay anything over minus 200, that's ridiculous. But honestly, on the road here for Nashville, the way they ended their season last year, these two teams are also going to be over teams in my eyes as well. But I like to give out winners. I mean, I like to try and find a good spot, and I can find, at Bookmaker minus 151, at 5 dimes minus 156, and I'm comfortable laying that. I mean, the fact is that New York is on a complete downward spiral. I talked about this a couple days ago. King Henrik is no longer the king. I said that New York's going to be a bet against team in my eyes, and I'll start right off the bat in their first game of the season. I mean, I always like to look at this roster for Nashville, and I just get blown away every time I do it. I mean, when you've got Johansson, Turris, and Bonino as your centers down the middle, it's unbelievable. I mean, that top line of Forsberg, Johansson, and Arvidsson is absolutely ridiculous. It's second to none. I mean, you got guys like Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider that are leading that New York Rangers team. Are you kidding me? Are those the guys? Are those the guys that are competing against this stacked roster in the Nashville Predators? Ian, Alex, I don't understand. I mean, we're getting a minus 150 number here, and just because they're, I wonder what it would be, guys, if Nashville was playing at home. That's really what I wonder, because the line that we're getting now, I think, has something to do with the fact that they're on the road and starting the season. Sometimes when you're placing a wager, you're placing a bet, you want to try and think to yourself, why shouldn't I take this? What should be preventing me from making this wager? And maybe is it defense? Nope. I think Nashville's got that covered. They've got depth, like crazy, and an offensive defenseman as well. Is it the center depth down the middle for each team? Nope, because Nashville's got that beat. Is it goaltending? That's the biggest question. I don't know, because I think Rene, he has something to prove. He's been a little bit of a question mark. Last year in the playoffs, he did not play to his status par, I don't think. And as far as Henrik Lundqvist goes, he's going to get a shit ton of shots fired at him every single night. And I think that's the strategy of this Nashville team: get pucks on net, crash, be aggressive, and that's going to really, really kind of wear and tear down Lundqvist tonight. So, guys, to be honest with you, back-to-back, road phase for me. I'm going with this Nashville Predators team at the minus 151 price.
All right, minus 151 for Nashville for Andrew. And yeah, again, that's the side I'm definitely leaning to. And Nashville, clearly the superior team. And, it's not a bad hire. And finally, the name comes back to me, Quinn, for the New York Rangers, David Quinn, the new head coach of this team. He's had success in the college ranks, but now you got to prove you can do it at the NHL level. This is a guy that coached Boston University, the Terriers, the BU Terriers, for the last few years. Let's see how he does now in the NHL. That's the question. What I do like about what he's going to do is he's going to let these guys, let the horses out of the stable, so to speak, here with this team offensively. They kind of didn't really, Alain Vigneault sometimes was a little bit too insistent on protecting the net defensively, and you sort of saw the Rangers offensively were atrocious at times last season. There were times that it was just impossible to put the puck in the net. But this is a team that's going to, again, there's so many of these coaches and teams now saying we're going to play faster, we're going to try to push it a little bit, and now the New York Rangers are another of those teams. Well, we saw Montreal trying to do that last night. We saw Anaheim try to do that last night. It's all about playing with pace now in today's NHL. And even these old guards and these old coaches, Julian and Carlisle, for years, we're playing defensive shutdown hockey first and foremost and just capitalize on our chances. No, even they're starting to come around to, hey, we need fast young legs. We need to inject speed. We need to inject getting the puck north-south up the ice quickly into the game. And you're seeing pretty much every team now in the NHL trying to play this way. And that's why I think these totals, as we see throughout the course of the season, if we have the kind of over explosion we had last night and it continues moving forward, eventually you're going to see adjustments. I think 6 might become the new 5.5. Sooner rather than later. I really do think that because eventually there's going to have to be an adjustment, because I think we're getting close to the point where we're seeing 28, if not 30 of the teams in the NHL, if not all of them, now playing at a faster tempo, push the puck up the ice brand of hockey. So that's something to monitor moving forward, something to monitor with this New York Rangers team. Now, it's such a transition from what Vigneault did that it could take some time, but we'll see how the New York Rangers deal with it. But certainly their forward group's very patchwork still. Not a great ton of depth on it whatsoever. I mean, Kreider, Zibanejad, Buchnevich are pretty good. VC, Hayes, Zuccarello, and then there's a huge drop-off after that, as far as I'm concerned. And a couple youngsters, Philip Cheidel, Jesper Foss now on the fourth line. So that's going to be the question mark. Where's that bottom six forward scoring going to be for the New York Rangers? Next up, we've got Winnipeg, St. Louis, 63-64 on the rotation here. We've got let me take a look here. We've got St. Louis minus 120. We've seen some Jets money trickle in. St. Louis was as high as minus 130 down to minus 120. Total 5.5, 6, depending on where you look. I've got the side and the total in this game. I took Winnipeg in the side at over 5.5, minus 125 in the total. I think we're going to see goals, and I think here's a team. What have you thought of for St. Louis for years? Defensive-minded, good goaltending. Win a lot of games 2-1, 3-1. I think this is going to be a dramatic shift from this team this season. I don't trust the goaltending. I've seen enough of Jake Allen now to know I don't trust him, all right? That's all there is to it. I think defensively, for the first time in years, they're a little bit shaky now, the St. Louis team on the blue line. I think that blue line was stronger last year, 2 years ago, than it is now. But they're a better offensive team, and potentially a much better offensive team this year, St. Louis. I really like what they've done up front. Going into this season in terms of offense. Unfortunately, I think they sort of sacrificed defense for it. But offensively, Ryan O'Reilly, great addition from the Sabres. He's going to center a line with Tarasenko and Maroon, which should be a good one. Schwartz, Shen, and Kyrou, Bozak, Perron back with this team as well. Robert Thomas, keep an eye on this guy. Was a terror in the Ontario Hockey League with the London Knights and then ended his career with my local hometown Hamilton Bulldogs last year and helped them get to the Memorial Cup. And he's a great player, great prospect, someone to keep an eye on here for this Blues team. And again, Jake Allen, Chad Johnson, I'm not going to have any sort of faith in either of those two goalies. Chad Johnson didn't have a great season last year at all for St. Louis. They're going to be able to put the puck in the net. And like I said, I think their defense is a little weaker than it's been. Winnipeg, we know offensively, firepower-wise, they're as good as it gets. Scheifele, Wheeler, Lyonnais, Little, Perreault, Kyle Connor. I mean, just an embarrassment of riches. Nick Ehlers, Roslovic. Watch for Jack Roslovic. He's a guy that came on at times last year. He's going to be a good player for them. Connor Hellebuck, to me, great year last year. This, to me, has the feel of a goalie that's not going to be quite as good this year. Maybe still good, but I don't think he's going to duplicate what he did last year. That being said, I still think Winnipeg's got the horses to win this game tonight, and I also like the game to go over the total. We'll go Jets and over for me against St. Louis tonight. Alex B. Smith is involved with the Jets and the Blues. Alex, what do you like?
Yeah, I'm right there with you on this Winnipeg team. I don't agree with you on Connor Hellebuck, though. I think as we're seeing a change of the guard and goaltenders, I mentioned this on Tuesday, and Andrew, you kind of touched on it a little bit too, talking about with Henrik Lundqvist, but I think we're seeing a change of guard in the top goalies in this league right now. And I think Connor Hellebuck is definitely one of, if not the best goaltender right now in the National Hockey League. I think this is the guy we're going to see him put up big numbers like he did last year for quite some time, if he can stay healthy, of course. But looking at this game, Winnipeg has absolutely dominated St. Louis, won 8 of the last 10 meetings. This is a Winnipeg team that they have their eyes set on making a run to the conference finals again, if not the Stanley Cup final this year. This is a team that they're on the rise. They're still young. They're still hungry. St. Louis is a team that I've been predicting their kind of fall off for a couple of years now, and they finally did miss the playoffs after a long stretch. They're a team, like I said, they've made some improvements. They're going to get better. They're more likely going to be back in the playoffs this year. But I just see, like I said, the edges all point to Winnipeg here. And I think goaltending, just offensive talent overall. I like Winnipeg in the spot, and the fact that we're still having a plus price to attach to it, I'm definitely rolling with the Jets tonight.
All right, Jets for Alex B. Smith in this game against the St. Louis Blues. Again, St. Louis, a very fascinating team to watch for me early on, because if I hope I'm right, you're not going to get your preseason prognostications right in game one. You think a team's going to be better. It's not always going to show up in game one. Look at my call on Calgary last night as a perfect example. So again, you got to be careful, but my just personal take is St. Louis is going to be an over team this year from a totals perspective. Questions finally on the blue line, questions in goal, and an upgraded offense. We'll see if it translates here tonight in this particular hockey game. Let's get to Andrew. This is his I believe, final game of the games that he's got a wager on or an opinion on for this card. Blues and Jets. Andrew, what do you like here?
Yeah, Ian, the good news is as well is that, you mentioned so many totals are moving to sixes, but with this St. Louis team, it's going to be a little while, I think, until we get to that average of a six mark. Because like you mentioned, we're so used to seeing them as a major defensive team and a team that's involved in these low scoring games. So it's a great opportunity for us to cash in on this over ticket, especially with these two offenses. I mean, the St. Louis team is a different team than they've seen a couple years ago, even just last year, of course. And again, my take on the whole Hellebuck situation, guys. First of all, the guy freaking got paid. I mean, he got paid by the Winnipeg Jets, and whether or not you want to talk about security or a guy having a little slump after he gets that huge paycheck or whatever. I think the only problem with Hellebuck is that, as Ian's talking about teams moving up and down the ice so fast and changing the game of the transition hockey and the speed of teams, that's usually what hurts him the most is these 2-on-1, 3-on-1 breakaways that really cost him. He's fine 5-on-5 in his own end when he's there to communicate with his D-men. But, when it's odd man rushes, he struggles. And I think that he's a very big, very tall goaltender. He gets beat 5-hole quite often. They shoot low on him. But I don't think he'll struggle too much. But again, 5.5. Anytime I get 5.5 with this Winnipeg team, it's got to be an over for me. I'm looking at it. I got to consider it. And you got to look at these two rosters. I mean, we're looking at the top six for the Winnipeg Jets, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, guys, I've always respected players that have come from the junior league that I follow, the Quebec Major Junior League, and I'm looking at Nick Ehlers right now, the third line right winger. I mean, he is an unreal player. I think as the years progress, he'll still keep getting better and better and better. He is an absolute rocket out there. He uses his speed. That's his biggest advantage. He's on the third line. I mean, it goes to show right there. Of course, right above him, though, is Patrick Laine, second line right winger, and first line Blake Wheeler. So, I mean, when you've got guys like Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Brian Little, Matthew Perreault, I mean, these guys they know what they're doing. They have experience. And I've always said that the Winnipeg team is a mixture of vets and youth, but it's not as much even really youth on this team anymore for Winnipeg. It's just pure skill. It's just snipers on each line that can put the puck away. And when I look at this matchup, I think that St. Louis right away, they have to kind of prove their identity to the league and prove who they are. So, we look at their top line. They've got Maroon, O'Reilly, and Tarasenko. I mean, first of all, O'Reilly and Maroon are huge bodies. I mean, they're really tough to knock off the puck. They're big bodies, big presence in front of the net, but their hands are great for their size. And then, of course, we got Vladimir Tarasenko, the right winger on that line, and we all know what he's capable of. We all know his hands. We all know his shot, his scoring ability. And, of course, we got guys like Tyler Bozak down there in the third line, David Perron and Alex Steen. I mean, the depth for both these two teams really do add up as you go down the list of this roster. And like you mentioned, Ian, Jake Allen is a guy that has not really proven himself to be a dynamite goaltender for me. And I've told you guys, a couple times, I watched most of the preseason. I monitored most teams, especially teams that I'm looking to back this year, like St. Louis. And Jake Allen didn't impress me. So what that really tells me, guys, is that if St. Louis is going to be successful this year, they're going to have to put up a decent amount of goals. So I say, look at the over 1.5 goals in the first period in this one, and look over 5.5 goals for the full game.
All right, there we go. First period over, full game over. Winnipeg, St. Louis for Andrew McGinnis. Next up, we've got Arizona taking on Dallas. Dallas minus 185, total 5.5, 6. Split on the total. Some 5.5, some 6s, depending on where you look. Here's another team with a coaching change. Jim Montgomery now the new head coach. Of course, the Dallas Stars say goodbye to Ken Hitchcock, retired. Or so they say, retired in the offseason. Jim Montgomery comes over. Denver Pioneers, there's another guy, they go into the U.S. college hockey ranks, coached the Denver Pioneers the last few years. Another guy now that is saying we're going to play faster with more pace. That's the plan for this Dallas team, where actually offensively, defensively, believe it or not, they were better than they were 2 years ago, but offensively they dipped a little bit, this Dallas Stars team. So we'll see if they get their offense cranked up again. Can Jason Spezza have a bounce-back season? Tyler Seguin's got to play big again. Jamie Benn's got to play big again for this team. I still have question marks, though, defensively. Can Ben Bishop, who's healthy, and can be good when he's healthy, but can he stay healthy? That's becoming a bigger issue for him in recent years. I was talking up this Arizona team, no question about it. I think that they're going to be an improved team. They were one of the hottest teams in the NHL down the stretch of last season. Antti Raanta was absolutely fantastic. Does bother me. They've got a couple of injuries in Christian Dvorak and their new addition, Alex Galchenyuk, to start the season out due to injury. But I'm still going to take a flyer here with Arizona, plus 165 here. What's Dallas done last year to warrant being this heavy of a favorite here in the very first game of the season? I'm not so sure. They got a new coach now, a little bit of a tweak in their philosophy and their system as well because of it. So, yeah, again, I want to hopefully see Arizona get healthier. I would have had a bigger wager on that than this if they had been a little bit healthier, but I still think it's worth it at this price. And Antti Raanta was great last year. He's healthy to begin this season. I like Clayton Keller on this team. The blue line's very good. Jason Demers shut down D-man. Oliver Ekman-Larsson locked up long-term. I think Arizona can hang in this game and challenge to win it. So that's enough for me to take them. Plus 165. I know Alex likes a big dog in the New York Islanders. This is my big dog of the night here. Arizona at plus 165 against the Dallas Stars. Next up, Minnesota, Colorado, as we're running out of time, only a few minutes. Colorado minus 130, 5.5, 6 the total. It's a pass for me. I lean Colorado, but don't love laying the price. I got really question marks about Minnesota. It's a team that sort of petered out last year at the end down the stretch. Can they bounce back? We'll see. Alex, you're in on this Minnesota-Colorado game here. What do you like?
Yeah, I'm looking at the over in this game. The over is cashed in 4 of the last 6 meetings. Looking at both goaltender Devin Dubnyk and Semyon Varlamov have been confirmed to start. Both guys don't really have good numbers against each other, against their opposing clubs. I'm looking definitely at the over here. I think we saw a lot of high-scoring games in the preseason with Minnesota. They've got guys healthy. They're trying to make a statement here this season to see if they can, really ramp things up and make a push in the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have a down year once again with the Wild, but I look to see some goals from both of these teams here, so the over is my play.
All right, over 5.5, minus 120 with Minnesota, Colorado. We got Philly and Vegas. Last game on the card, Flyers, Golden Knights. Vegas minus 155, minus 160. Total 6 shaded to the under. There's probably going to be some kind of ceremony to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the terrible, tragic shooting in Las Vegas last year. I know you're going to see something like that, so it should be a frenzied environment and atmosphere, as it always is at T-Mobile Arena if you ever watch a Vegas home game. Philadelphia. Watch out for this team. If they can get goaltending, and it's the same damn thing we say every year about the Flyers, if they can get goaltending, they could be decent. They could be competitive. There's a lot to like up front. I think their blue liners are getting better. Gostisbehere, Provorov, Sanheim, Christian Folin. We'll see. I don't like that Radko Gudas is still on that blue line. I don't think he can play all that well. He can't skate all that well. It takes some dumb penalties sometimes. But other than that, there's some things to like about the Flyers. I'm not betting them here in this spot. No way, no how, though. Vegas at home, jacked up environment, on a night where they'll pay tribute, I'm sure, to that shooting that happened. I think you're going to get a good effort here from Vegas. I think Jimmy, by the way, our friend who unfortunately wasn't able to join us today, I think he wrote up this game on the SBR website, sportsbookreview.com. I think he actually made a case for the Flyers here as a big underdog. So check that out, Jimmy. Lean into the Flyers here at the underdog price against the Vegas Golden Knights. And remember, Dana said Vegas could be out to a slow start. Remember, they're battling some injuries early on here in the season. Can they maintain what they did last year? So a very fascinating game to watch. I'm not involved in this game betting-wise. None of us are. But I'm very fascinated to observe it. What do we get from Vegas out of the gate? And can the Flyers maybe surprise this season and do something special, even maybe here in game 1 of the season? And again, can their goaltending hold up? Because really, there's some things to like. They're going to be able to score some goals with Giroux and Simmons and company. But again, it's going to come down to this goaltending situation here with the Flyers. Are they going to get it from Brian Elliott? That remains to be seen. We'll see tonight how he fares in between the pipes. All right, let's go to best bets to wrap up the show. It's funny. The one guy that cashed the best bet from the last show is not here, and that's Dana Lane. Yeah, the rest of us, 1 and 3. What can you say? But hey, it's a long season. I say that it's a long season. You can't be too upset if you have a bad first night or first couple nights. A lot of opportunities in a long NHL season. Let's get to Alex. Your best bet for this Thursday card.
There we go. Finally got the microphone on. Yeah, I'll go with Winnipeg as my best bet tonight. Like I said, getting a plus price with a really good team. Like I said, I give the goaltending edge, the offensive edge, everything intangible wise to Winnipeg here in this spot. This is a team that was on the rise last year, and I think they're going to continue on that rise. So Winnipeg Jets plus $1.05 is where I got it at. That's my best bet for tonight.
All right, Winnipeg Jets, best bet for Alex B. Smith. Andrew McGinnis, best bet for you.
Yeah, we already talked about how this league is shifting towards more sixes as the numbers for totals. I talked about how much I love seeing this 5.5 number between these two competitive teams in the Jets and the Blues, and a couple roster changes for the St. Louis team. That I think that I can make an impact, and I don't trust either of these goaltenders honestly in a action-packed, very competitive, high-paced game with lots of shots. Top six on both these two teams are completely stacked. So much talent on both these two teams. Opening night, give me the 5.5, my best bet on the over.
All right, that's actually also mine. Jets Blues over 5.5, minus 120. Like I say, I think St. Louis is an over team and a significant paradigm shift, you could say, from the way they played, the way they've trended totals wise in years past. I think we start to see it tonight, shades of it. Jets Blues over 5.5, minus 120. My best bet as well for this Thursday card. That's going to wrap up the show. Thanks to Alex and Andrew for being along for the ride. We'll be back on Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And as of right now, it's going to be the originals. The original four expected to be with on the show Saturday. Me, Andrew, Alex, and Dana Lane. We're looking forward to it. Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern, our next edition of the NHL Ice Guys. For Alex B. Smith and Andrew McGinnis, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy the Thursday night NHL card. Good luck with all of your wagers, and we'll see you again on Saturday.